Hiya, me again, and I've got one word for you to get the ball rolling today. Are you ready? Algorithm. Algorithms are everywhere nowadays. You buy something, other customers bought this. You listen to something, oh, we've got these picks for you. You watch something. Let's start this for you before you've even finished watching that thing that you were just watching. Yeah, they're everywhere. So, summoning the spirit of rebellion, I'm going to play it being an algorithm today, and starting with 10 very well-known, much-loved Indian alternative records, I'm going to suggest something in the same vein that you may not have come across before. There's nothing super rare or obscure going on here, but I do get tired of recommendations for the same old, when I know full well there's a great alternative that an algorithm based on aggregating clicks or harvesting browsing habits would 99 times out of 100 completely ignore. No order here, I'm taking them as they come, but I am trying for contemporaneous choices here, albums that would have come out in or around the same time. So let's begin. At one, I've got Joy Division's Closer, the band's 1980 epitaph and a post-punk, neo-gothic classic of alienation, existential crises, dark, sinewy, engulfing, and very, very beautiful. I know many prefer Unknown Pleasures if pushed to choose one or the other, but we can probably all agree that it's an amazing album and one of the finest recordings from that first wave of UK post-punk bands. So, how about Sleep No More by the Comsat Angels? Released in 1981, a year after Closer, this is probably the Comsat's best album, although I do have a soft spot for its more colourful, lighter, less stark follow-up, 1982's Fiction. Like Closer, Sleep No More was a second album, following the band's debut, Waiting for a Miracle, which was issued the previous year. One from Manchester, the other from Sheffield. The Comsats had all the post-punk credentials, tours and gigs with the Banshees, Gang of Four, and a little-known Irish band called U2, who supported them on tour to promote Sleep No More. It's a great record, colossal drums, bass up front, leading the charge, icy affected guitars, Stephen Fallow's haunted, lost voice, picking its way through the carnage. The long-time BBC film critic Mark Kermode is a mega fan and claims to this day that the Comsats were better than Joy Division. I wouldn't go that far, but one listen should be enough to at least understand how he got to that point. Second up, at number 2, I've got The Smiths' Meat is Murder, and another second album. Always the Bridesmaid, this one. Not many people's favourite Smiths album, I think, but chock full of corkers nonetheless. The Headmaster Ritual, that joke isn't funny anymore. Well, I wonder, barbarism begins at home. A great record by anyone's standards. My suggestion here, another less lauded album from another of the 80s finest exponents of awkward, jangly, literate pop. And this is, from 1984, Spring Hill Fair by the Go-Betweens. Apparently they weren't at their happiest for the recording of Spring Hill Fair, not that you'd know from the sounds on offer here. It's certainly more polished than their earlier releases, but just as full of smart aleck, lovelorn joy as ever. This one ties for me with 16 Lovers Lane as my favourite Go-Betweens album, and the tonal awkwardness and rolling contours make it a great partner, I think, for Meat is Murder. Some Forster classics here in Draining the Pool for You and Man O' Santa, Girl O' and McLennan's gorgeous Bachelor Kisses and Unkind and Unwise really shine out too. The pick for me, though, is that odd Forster McLennan two-hander of 5 words. It's a cousin to the awkward, ramshackle recollections of their never-bettered track, Cattle and Cane. Big album next, and number 3, I've got R.E.M's Automatic for the People. Never my favourite of theirs, but the numbers don't lie. It's their commercial and critical zenith, certainly in the 1990s. And if you know your R.E.M., this suggestion should come as little surprise, I guess. They invited this band out on tour with them circa Monster. I am talking about Grant Lee Buffalo and their 1994 album, Mighty Joe Moon. I hear that same mixture of rootsy, folky, Americana type instrumentation here with thick, murky electric textures added on top. It's very much like Automatic in that respect. Grant Lee Phillips' voice pitches up somewhere between Mike Scott of the Waterboys and, although I'm not a fan normally, Pearl Jam's Eddie Vedder. Yeah, toying around at the periphery of that hard-to-nail grunge folk crossover, much like Neil Young around that time, and really, when you think of it, yeah, R.E.M. too. Yeah, I'm thinking tracks like Drive or Ignore Land here. Truth be told, I've wandered quite a ways from this type of stuff over the years, but my ears don't fib. These sound like spiritual cousins to me, even now. Okay, slightly more to separate the next pairing, but I still think fans of one would find much to like in the other. Yeah, 4 I've got Surfer Rosa by the Pixies. And it's that Black Francis lyrical focus and twisted, throat-shedding scream that's almost impossible to sort anywhere else without sacrificing that supremely melodic element to Pixies music. So here, focusing more on the music, the atmosphere, less maybe on the vocals, I'd suggest checking out Swell's second album, that's Well, from 1991. Yeah, David Friel and Black Francis are worlds apart, really. One all kind of hushed, honeyed, Lou Reed drawl. The other, well, the other one's Black Francis. But that mixture of insistent acoustic guitar with John Detman's stinging electric slide adding the breathtaking dynamic punctuation, it's always put me in mind of that Francis-Santiago partnership. Yeah, the mixture of jump lead dynamics and cooing melodies are the glue that hold this pairing together for me. The amazing At Long Last has oodles of that River Euphrates, the neck-snapping jolt about it. And now I come to think of it, the price, the side 2 opener on Well, it really puts me in mind of a heavily sedated take on Where Is My Mind. But I'll stop there. The more I overthink this, the more I'll draw spurious connections, and it'll come off like I'm saying Well is nothing more than a faded facsimile of Surfer Rosa. That couldn't be further from the truth. Think of them instead as distant cousins who, when you really study them up close, they share the family nose. 5, an easy one for me. If you like Sonic Youth's Daydream Nation, you will enjoy Love Agenda by Band of Susans. Both downtown New York acts with their fingers in the pies of the city's no wave and drone scenes. They have a lot in common on paper and almost as much on record. But where Sonic Youth let rip with kind of late 60s beat poetry and guitars as flamethrowers, the Susans work off bluesier, stonesier riffs, tough street lyricism, and a far more structured, painterly approach. If you like your guitars to mesh and crackle and coalesce like hot coals in a street corner brazier, you'll pick up on that kinship almost immediately. But if you like a Beatles Stones metaphor, and who doesn't, then think of Daydream Nation as an Abbey Road to Love Agenda's Let It Bleed. Just a bit of fun, but you get the idea. Next, I got Fugazi's 1993 mid-career masterpiece in On The Killtaker. Opinions will differ on Fugazi's best LP, and I'm not into making rankings and tier lists, but this album catches them right on the cusp of their more experimental period, at the height of grunge mania, and quite frankly, it just plain rocks. It's full of storming skull shakers like Public Witness Program, nuanced mini-dramas like Returning the Screw, and the incredible 3-song run at the album's centre, Rend It, 23 beats off, and the wonderful instrumental, Sweet and Low. And this was the one point in their career where the majors genuinely tried to court Fugazi. Very large sums were offered, and summarily turned down. The band stuck to their guns. My flip side suggestion here would be Jawbox and For Your Own Special Sweetheart, the major label debut of one of a number of Discord outfits who, unlike Fugazi, decided that they'd never get a better shot at a deal than now. No pontificating here, it makes no difference. In fact, sonically, musically, this was by far, I think, the best record Jawbox had ever made up to that point. Savoury, Motorist, Green Glass, Chicago Piano. This is one mean DC post-hardcore record that just happened to come out on Atlantic Records. Another easy one, this. If you love Killtaker, you'll love Sweetheart, no question. A bit of a toughie at 7, Nirvana. I mean, Bleach and Nevermind are so embedded in that grudge timeline that I can't go near them. But, yeah, in Utero, yeah, I'll take a shot at that one. because this was Cobain's attempt at kind of wresting control back and, dialing up the nasty, difficult sounds of all his influences, everything from Black Flag and the Wipers to the squall and hysteria of Scratch Acid and the Jesus Lizard. So as an Over on the Fringes alternative from 93, the same year as In Utero's release, and from another band hailing from the Pacific Northwest, why not go and give Unwound's Fake Train a try? It ain't grunge by any means, but in spirit and sonically, some of Justin Trosper's guitar tones here are eerily similar to the ugly buzz of the In Utero sound. There's something here to get your teeth into. Tracks, Lucky Acid, Valentine Card, and Pure Pain Sugar, they're all good starting points. Don't expect a penny royalty or an all apologies analogue here. This is a distillation of all the raw abrasion that Cobain was choosing on In Utero, so bear that in mind if you're inspired to check this one out. Okay, post-rock, well, the US flavour anyway, and the great granddaddy of that scene, I'm talking at 8, Slint's Spiderland. Easy to forget that when this arrived in 91, there was really very little else to compare it to. Bitch Magnet's Ben-Hur, maybe. I've talked about that one a bit already. Maybe the Bastro releases at the same period too. But I'll fast forward a little to 94 and direct you towards Rusty, the only studio album from Louisville's R.E.M. If you're deep into this stuff, maybe not especially surprising, but I'm assuming nothing here. Yeah, I am just an algorithm for the day after all. And I'm not sending you on some ultra-obscure, crate scrambling exercise. Just a wonderful record, basically. And from R.E.M. sprang an entire branch of the post-rock family tree. Retzin, Shipping News, Sonora Pine, June of 44, Rachel's, Tara Jane O'Neill's solo work. That's a lot of homework for the uninitiated right there. So, some of this is cropped up on the channel already. But the Rusty Spiderland kinship, you'll hear it in the transition from the hushed, pretty, chiming Bible Silver Corner to the guttural flash flood of Shiner, the stretched out dynamic of the 12-minute everyday world of bodies, and in the twisting, dark lyricism and skewed eruptions of the sublime Gage. Nothing more to add here. Spiderland fans will love Rusty. I personally guarantee it. Lo-fi? Okay, has to be. Pavements, Slanted and Enchanted, I guess. Certainly, as I remember it, the one that really took the phrase lo-fi from a descriptor to a genre almost overnight in 1992. There are albums from a few years hence that certainly hew close to the Slanted recipe book, but with nowhere near, I think, the easy-sounding panache. And in some cases, they sail perilously close to plagiarism land. I'm looking at you, debut album by Sammy. No, far better to plump for kindred spirits giving the no-budget recording craze their own spin. And in that respect, I can heartily recommend from 1993, the second album by The Grifters. That's One Sock Missing. Where the Pavement guys were channeling early Rough Trade and Flying Nun clatter through the California sunshine, the Grifters were tapping into bar band power pop and punkishness. Think the Flesh tones, the Replacements even, and plugging it into the Port Studio, all woozy, sloppy guitars, blown out bass, cross-cut kind of Bowie vocal melodies. Pretty glorious stuff, really. Kissing cousins to the Flaming Lips in places, but infinitely less psychedelic, much more bluesy, stonesy, tougher, less self-conscious. She Blows Blasts of Static and Corolla Hoist are great tasters for this album and a window into the wonderful world of the Grifters. Is that 10 already? Okay, well, we'll finish off parking up close to where this list actually started. At 10, I've got New Order's greatest album. That's 1983's Power, Corruption and Lies. After the head-clearing Movement album and a string of increasingly wonderful EPs and singles, this was New Order's most successful crunching together of their post-punk guitar style with the New York disco and electro rhythms and synthesizers they'd become so enamored with. As an alternative suggestion, I've got something from the same year. Different sound, different feel, from a band with a long shared history with New Order, who had quietly kicked off the whole post-punk electronica thing before punk had even happened. My suggestion here for you would be The Crackdown by Cabaret Voltaire. Like the Comsats at the beginning, the Cabs came from Sheffield, and they had a lot of history with Joy Division and the factory scene. They played on the same bills together many times, and both bands appeared on the legendary A Factory Sample EP. And in fact, New Order's very first time back in the studio, only 3 months after Ian Curtis's death, was at Western Works in Sheffield. That's Cabaret Voltaire's own studio, where they recorded their earliest Movement-era demos. Cabaret Voltaire were essentially just the duo of Richard Kirk and Stephen Malander by 1983, and following the Yashar 12-inch in May of 83, also on Factory, by the way, The Crackdown was their first major label album on Virgin, coming out in August of the same year. And although Cabaret Voltaire were a huge influence on New Order, make no mistake, this album is no sonic cousin to Power, Corruption and Lies. Instead, it's more of a fascinating counterpoint. How two bands springing from similar backgrounds in post-punk could take a slightly different turn and both end up highly influential on different strands of electronic music. New Order always maintained I guess you'd say, a dance rock hybrid angle to their music, but the Cabs would essentially seed the industrial music, the EBM, electronic body music genre, providing inspiration to artists like Daff, Front 242, and ultimately Skinny Puppy, Frontline Assembly, Ministry, 9 Inch Nails. Heck, look closely and you can even see them make an appearance on Ferris Bueller's Bedroom Wall. But here, crucially, on The Crackdown, the live instrumentation is still there. There are acoustic drums, Mal's electric bass. So the comparisons with New Order and Power, Corruption and Lies are particularly relevant, I think. The hypnotic track, Just Fascination, is fantastic. Animation and the title track also. I think for electronic adjacent music of a certain age, I think this stuff holds up pretty well. Why not give it a try? And with that, I'll slip my programming and come back into human form. Thanks very much for watching. If you've got this far, please comment below if you have any comments about any of these choices, or maybe there are some alternatives that you think I've missed. But you know the drill by now. If you can give me a like, or if you'd like to subscribe, it really, really helps the channel. So please do so. And in the meantime, take care, and I will see you again very soon. Bye for now.